Two women loved him the day Thomas Reed died. The sky did not weep. It was painfully blue, wide, merciless, almost cheerful, as if the world had mistaken grief for celebration. The wind moved softly through the cemetery grass, bending the blades in quiet waves. Birds sang in the distant trees. Somewhere far off, a child laughed. Anna stood to the left of the coffin. Clara stood to the right. Neither woman looked at the other. The coffin rested between them like a secret, finally brought into the light. Anna's gloved hands were folded tightly at her waist. Her knuckles had gone white hours ago. But she hadn't noticed. She hadn't noticed much since the phone call at 3:17 in the morning. The hospital's calm. Practiced voice explaining that there had been complications. That Thomas had asked for her. That Thomas had not made it. She had dropped the receiver. She had known. Even before she heard the rest. On the other side, Clara's fingers trembled against the black fabric of her coat. She was younger, only by 5 years. But today it felt like decades separated them. Clara's dark hair was pinned back too tightly. A strand had come loose and clung to her cheek, but she didn't brush it away. She stared at the coffin as if it might open. As if he might sit up and laugh gently, embarrassed by the fuss. Thomas had always hated attention. The priest's voice drifted over them in low, measured tones. Words about eternity. About mercy. About the promise of reunion. The sentences passed through Anna like smoke. She caught fragments. Faithful husband. Beloved friend. Devoted father. The words felt both true and painfully incomplete. Because he had not only been a husband, and he had not only been loved by one woman. Anna felt it before she saw it. The slight shift in the air. The almost imperceptible weight of Clara's gaze. Against her will, Anna turned her head. Their eyes met for the first time. It was not anger that passed between them. It was recognition. They had known about each other. Not in the beginning. Not when love had first bloomed and felt sacred and exclusive. But later. Quietly. Gradually. In the spaces between late nights at the office and unexplained absences. In the scent of unfamiliar perfume. In the way Thomas would sometimes look at nothing at all. As though half his heart lived somewhere neither of them could see. Anna had confronted him once. It had been raining that night too. She could still see him standing by the kitchen window. His shoulders bowed not in defiance, but in exhaustion. "Do you love her?" She had asked, her voice barely louder than the storm. He had not answered immediately. That silence had been answer enough. When he finally spoke, it was almost a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you." The cruelty of that sentence had stunned her more than any confession. Because it meant he had loved her, and still chosen this. Across the coffin, Clara swallowed hard. She remembered a different conversation. A small cafe on Maple Street, long after closing. The owner had known Thomas since childhood and left them alone with the lights dimmed. Clara had sat across from him, her coffee cold and untouched. "She's your wife," Clara had said. "Yes." "And you still go home to her every night?" "Wes." And she had waited for him to say something more. To explain. To promise. To decide. Instead, he had reached across the table and taken her hand. "I love you," he had said simply. Clara had believed him. The priest's voice faltered slightly as he invited the family to come forward. Anna stepped first. Her heels sank into the soft earth. As she approached the coffin, she laid her palm gently on the polished wood. It was smooth and cold. "Goodbye," she whispered. But what she meant was why. Behind her, Clara moved closer. The mourners shifted, uncertain, sensing something unspoken hanging between the two women. Clara hesitated only a moment before placing her hand beside Anna's. Their fingers did not touch, but they were close enough to feel the heat from each other's skin. Thomas had lived between them for 6 years. 6 long, fragile years of divided holidays, careful lies, stolen afternoons, and birthdays celebrated twice. 6 years of half, truths and whole emotions. 6 years of loving the same man differently, completely, and never fully. A gust of wind swept across the cemetery. Anna's hat nearly lifted from her head. Clara's loose strand of hair whipped against her lips. And for one suspended second, they both imagined him standing there between them again. His smile apologetic, his eyes warm, his voice saying their names in that particular way that made each of them feel singular. But he was silent now. Forever. The casket began to lower. The sound of the mechanism clicking echoed far too loudly. Anna felt something inside her begin to crack. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like ice giving way beneath unseen pressure. She had been Thomas's wife for 23 years. She had known the shape of his shoulders in the dark, the rhythm of his breathing, the way he hummed absent-mindedly when fixing things around the house. She had held his hand through illness once before. She had watched him cradle their newborn son with tears in his eyes. She had built a life with him. Clara had known him differently. She had known the version of Thomas who laughed more freely, who spoke of dreams he had long ago buried, who confessed fears he could not share at home. She had known his restless heart, the way he would stare out of her apartment window as though searching for courage. She had given him something Anna had not known he needed. And that knowledge did not bring triumph. It brought sorrow. Because neither of them had been enough to keep him whole. The coffin disappeared into the earth. A final dull thud echoed up from below. Something in Clara broke then. A small, involuntary sound escaped her throat. Half sob, half breath. Anna closed her eyes. For a brief moment, she considered reaching out. Not in forgiveness. Not in accusation. Just in shared grief. But the moment passed. The mourners began to disperse slowly, offering hushed condolences. Anna received them with distant politeness. Clara stood apart, as if unsure of her place in this landscape of official sorrow. Because what was she? Here, not the widow, Not the family. Not the rightful mourner. And yet her heart ached with a legitimacy no one could see. As the crowd thinned, Anna finally turned fully toward Clara. Up close, she could see the faint tremor in the younger woman's jaw, the redness around her eyes, the silent devastation. "You came?" Anna said, softly. Clara nodded. "I had to." A long silence stretched between them. "I didn't know if you would," Anna added. Clara met her gaze steadily. "He loved you," she said. The words were not accusation. They were fact. Anna's throat tightened. "Yes," she replied. "He did." "Neither of them," said the rest aloud. "He loved you too." The wind shifted again, colder now. The cemetery felt suddenly vast and empty. Anna glanced at the fresh mound of earth. "He never chose," she murmured almost to herself. Clara's eyes filled. "No," she agreed. "He never did." And standing there beside the grave of the man who had divided their lives and joined their sorrow, both women realized something terrible and inescapable. Now, at last, he had made a choice. By dying, the realization did not strike like lightning. It settled instead, heavy and cold, like ash after a fire has burned itself out. The cemetery had nearly emptied. Only a few distant figures lingered beneath the trees, their black coats dissolving into gray shadows. The priest had gone. The polite murmurs had faded. The world had resumed its indifferent rhythm. Anna remained still. Clara shifted her weight, unsure whether to leave or stay. For years she had existed in the margins of Thomas's life, arriving after hours, departing before dawn, occupying borrowed time. Now even that fragile arrangement had vanished. Anna finally spoke. "You were with him at the hospital." It wasn't a question. Clara swallowed. "Yes." Anna nodded slowly, absorbing the confirmation like a final, necessary wound. "They told me he asked for me." "He did," Clara said quickly. "He said your name first." The honesty surprised them both. A silence followed, thick but no longer sharp. "He asked for you too," Clara added, her voice barely steady. "Just before." She couldn't finish. Anna closed her eyes for a moment. A strange relief threaded through her grief. He had not erased her at the end. He had not chosen silence. He was afraid, Clara whispered. Anna let out a fragile breath. He always was. They stood side by side again. Though no longer touching the coffin that was now hidden beneath soil. The wind had grown cooler. Clouds drifted in thin veils across the once bright sky. "I thought," Clara began carefully, "that one day he would decide." Anna's lips curved in something that was not quite a smile. "So did I." The confession hung between them. Two women admitting to the same quiet hope, the same patient delusion. Anna had believed that history would win. That marriage, shared children, decades of memory would anchor him. Clara had believed that passion would win. That vulnerability, truth, and the kind of love born late, but fiercely would pull him toward her. Neither had understood that Thomas was not built for choosing. He had loved deeply, but he had feared loss more than he desired clarity. "I hated you," Anna said suddenly. Clara flinched, but she nodded. "I know. I told myself terrible things about you." Anna's voice was calm, almost reflective. "That you were reckless. That you wanted to destroy what I built." "I never wanted to hurt you," Clara said softly. "I tried to leave him. Twice." Anna looked at her sharply. "I packed my things once," Clara continued. "I told him I couldn't live in halves anymore. He stood in my doorway and looked so small." Her voice trembled. "He said if I walked away, something in him would close forever." Anna felt a familiar, achy in her chest. She had seen that look too. The fragile plea in his eyes, when she had threatened to leave after discovering the truth. "You stayed," Anna said. "Yes. So did I." Their shared guilt felt heavier than anger ever could. A car door slammed somewhere in the distance. The sound jolted them both. The world was moving on, impatient with their suspended grief. Anna glanced toward the parking lot. "Our son is waiting." Clara's face shifted. "He looks like him. Wes." "I've seen photographs." The admission was gentle, almost apologetic. Anna considered this. For years she had imagined Clara as an intruder, someone who lived recklessly without consequence. But now she saw something else. A woman who had loved cautiously, who had studied family pictures from afar, who had existed without recognition. "He's 20, Anna said quietly. "He thinks his father was complicated, but good." Clara nodded. "He was good." "Yes," Anna agreed. "He was." They did not speak of the harm he had caused. Not yet. Grief had a way of polishing memory, smoothing its rough edges, until pain became almost bearable. A thin drizzle began to fall. Unexpected, hesitant. Tiny droplets darkened the fresh earth. Anna did not move to open her umbrella. "Did he ever talk about leaving?" she asked after a moment. Clara hesitated. "He talked about impossible futures." Anna understood immediately. "He used to say," Clara continued, "that in another life, we would have met first. That everything would have been simpler." Anna let out a hollow breath. "He told me something similar." Clara looked at her. "He said, if he had known who he would become, he would have protected me from himself." The rain grew steadier, soaking into black fabric, tracing cold paths down their faces like borrowed tears. For years they had imagined each other as opposites, rivals in a private war. But standing there, both drenched and trembling, they felt more alike than different. "Do you regret it?" Anna asked. Clara's answer came slowly. "Loving him? No." She paused, waiting for him. "Yes." Anna felt that truth settle deep inside her. She had waited too. Waited for him to end it. Waited for him to recommit. Waited for certainty. Time had passed regardless. "He promised me he would tell you," Clara said suddenly. Anna's head snapped up. "When?" "Last winter." Anna searched her memory, Winter had been quiet, almost peaceful. Thomas had seemed calmer, more attentive. She had mistaken it for resolution. He said he was tired of lying. Clara continued. He said he couldn't keep dividing himself. Anna felt a bitter tenderness rise in her throat. He said that every year. The Clara stared at the ground. He was going to choose? She whispered. I believe he meant to. Anna did not respond immediately. Perhaps he had meant to. But intention was not the same as action. The rain softened again, fading into mist. The cemetery air smelled of wet soil and fading flowers. I don't know what to do now, Clara admitted, the vulnerability in her voice raw and unguarded. Anna understood the question beneath the words. Who are we without him? You live, Anna said quietly. Clara gave a faint, broken laugh. It doesn't feel that simple. It isn't. Another long silence. Anna's gaze drifted once more to the grave. He was never only mine, she said slowly. And he was never only yours. Clara's eyes shimmered. We shared him. Anna continued. Even when we pretended we didn't. Clara felt something loosen in her chest. A knot she had carried for years. I don't want to be your enemy, she said. Anna studied her carefully. The younger woman's face held no defiance, no demand, only exhaustion and grief. We were never enemies. Anna replied at last. We were just two women who loved the same flawed man. The simplicity of it felt almost revolutionary. A car horn sounded softly from the parking lot. Anna straightened. I should go. Clara nodded. Neither moved immediately. There's something you should know, Clara said, her voice barely audible over the whisper of leaves. Anna turned back. Clara's hand trembled slightly as it dropped to her abdomen. Not dramatically, not an announcement, just instinctively. Anna's breath caught. The silence that followed felt like the pause before a storm breaks. I found out 3 weeks ago, Clara whispered. I was going to tell him the night he... Her voice collapsed. Anna stared at her, the implications crashing through her like cold water. Thomas had left behind more than memory. The rain began again, harder now. And for the first time since the coffin disappeared into the earth, Anna felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The rain fell harder, drumming softly against umbrellas that neither of them had opened. It soaked through fabric and into skin, but Anna barely noticed. Her gaze remained fixed on Clara's hand, still resting protectively against her abdomen. How far along? Anna asked, her voice steady in a way that surprised even her. Almost 3 months. 3 months. Anna calculated without meaning to. Winter. The quiet winter she had mistaken for peace. The winter when Thomas had lingered in the kitchen longer than usual. When he had kissed her forehead with a tenderness that had felt almost apologetic. She pressed her lips together. Does anyone else know? She asked. Clara shook her head. Not even him. Clara's eyes flooded. I was waiting for the right moment, I didn't want it to feel like something I was using to force him. Anna closed her eyes briefly. That sounded like Thomas. Complicated even in love. Fragile in his sense of responsibility. He would have been terrified, Anna said quietly. A faint, trembling smile touched Clara's mouth. Yes. And happy. Clara's breath caught. Do you think so? Yes. Anna opened her eyes again. He loved being a father. The word father seemed to echo strangely in the air between them. Anna's mind flickered to her son, Daniel, waiting in the car, likely staring at the steering wheel, pretending not to cry. 20 years old, but still a boy in moments like this. He had inherited Thomas's eyes. The same deep brown. The same quiet intensity. How would she tell him? How do you tell your grieving child that his father has left behind another child? One who will never know him at all. The thought tightened something inside her chest. Clara shifted, uncertain under Anna's silence. I'm not asking you for anything, she said quickly. I just thought you should know. Anna studied her. The rain had flattened Clara's hair against her temples. She looked younger now. Not like a rival. Not like an interloper. Just a woman standing in the wreckage of something she hadn't built alone. You're keeping it? Anna said. It wasn't a question. Yes. There was no hesitation in that answer. Anna nodded slowly. Good. Clara blinked, startled. Good. Wes. Anna's voice softened. This child didn't ask to be born into confusion. A tear slid down Clara's cheek, indistinguishable from rain. I was afraid you'd hate me more, she admitted. Anna let out a long breath. I'm too tired to hate anyone today. The honesty of it settled between them like a fragile truce. In the distance, Daniel stepped out of the car. He hesitated, then began walking toward them, his hands shoved deep into his coat pockets. His movements were stiff, controlled. Anna felt a fresh wave of protectiveness rise inside her. Clara saw him approaching and instinctively stepped back. I should go. Wes? Anna agreed gently. For now. Clara nodded, but neither woman moved immediately. Does he know about me? Clara asked quietly, glancing toward Daniel. Anna followed her gaze. He suspected. He confronted his father once, last year. The Clara's breath faltered. What did Thomas say? That it was complicated. A bitter note crept into Anna's voice. He always believed complexity excused him. Clara winced. Daniel was close enough now that Anna could see the redness around his eyes. He stopped a few feet away, glancing between the two women. Mom, he said softly. Anna reached for his hand. His grip was tight. Clara lowered her gaze respectfully. Daniel's eyes lingered on her face for a moment. There was no hostility there. Only curiosity, and something like understanding. You were there, he said to Clara. It wasn't accusatory. Yes, Clara answered quietly. He nodded once. Thank you. The simple grace of it made Clara's throat close. Anna felt her son's hand tremble. She squeezed it gently. "We're going home," she told him. Daniel nodded again. Clara stepped back another pace, giving them space. Anna turned to her one last time. There were 1,000 things she could have said. Warnings, questions, boundaries. Instead, only one sentence felt necessary. "Take care of yourself." The Clara understood the layers beneath it. "I will." Their eyes held for a long moment, not as rivals, not even as allies, but as two people permanently altered by the same love. Then, Anna and Daniel began walking toward the car. Clara remained by the grave. The rain softened again, falling in thin, silver threads. She stepped closer to the fresh earth and sank slowly to her knees, uncaring of the mud staining her coat. Her fingers pressed into the damp soil. "You were supposed to see," she whispered. "You were supposed to know." Her hand drifted again to her abdomen. Inside her, something impossibly small continued without understanding loss. She imagined Thomas's face when she would have told him. The way his eyes would widen. The way fear and wonder would collide there. He would have paced. He would have asked practical questions in a rush. He would have laughed nervously. And then he would have held her. Now there was only silence. "I won't let you disappear," she murmured to the grave. "Not for this child." The wind stirred the trees above her. For the first time since the hospital, Clara allowed herself to cry fully. Not the restrained tears of public mourning, but deep, shaking sobs that tore through her chest. Across the cemetery, Anna paused before opening the car door. She looked back. Clara was a dark figure against the gray earth, bent in grief. Daniel followed his mother's gaze. "That's her, isn't it?" he asked quietly. Anna didn't pretend not to understand. "Yes," he nodded slowly. "I thought so." There was no anger in his voice, only something weary and older than his years. "Did you know?" Anna asked him. He hesitated. "I knew Dad wasn't all here sometimes." Anna felt that truth settle heavily. "He loved you," she said firmly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I know." They stood there together, rain misting around them. "Are you going to hate her?" he asked after a moment. Anna considered the question carefully. "No," she said at last. Daniel glanced at her, surprised. "She lost him too," Anna continued. "In a different way. But she lost him." Daniel absorbed that. "Dad always said love wasn't simple," he murmured. Anna almost laughed at the painful accuracy. "He was right," she said softly. They got into the car. As Anna started the engine, she felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, and not acceptance. Something quieter. A recognition that grief was not divisible. It did not belong to one person alone. Across the cemetery, Clara remained kneeling until the rain stopped completely. When she finally rose, her movements were slow but steady. She looked down at the grave one last time. "You left us with each other," she whispered. It wasn't accusation. It was realization. Thomas had spent 6 years standing between them. Now he was gone, and in his absence, a fragile, unspoken connection had begun to form. Thin as thread, delicate as glass. Clara turned and walked toward her own car, one hand resting protectively over the quiet life growing inside her. Behind her, the freshly turned earth settled slightly, as though the ground itself were learning how to carry what had been placed within it. The days that followed moved strangely, both too fast and impossibly slow. Anna returned to a house that felt altered in subtle, painful ways. Thomas's coat still hung by the door. His shoes remained neatly aligned on the mat. A mug with a faint ring of dried coffee sat beside the sink. Nothing had shifted, and yet everything had. Daniel retreated to his room the first night, claiming exhaustion. Anna did not press him. She moved through the kitchen quietly, touching objects without purpose. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. The world insisted on continuing. She stood in the doorway of their bedroom for a long time before entering. The bed was made, smooth and untouched on his side. She crossed the room slowly and sat where he used to sleep. The mattress dipped slightly beneath her weight. For years she had imagined what it would feel like if he finally left her for good. She had rehearsed anger. She had rehearsed dignity. She had rehearsed speeches spoken through tears. She had never rehearsed this. Death was not the dramatic ending she had prepared for. It offered no confrontation, no last explanation, no clarity. She lay down on his side and turned her face into his pillow. The faint scent of him remained. Her chest tightened. "Why couldn't you just choose?" she whispered into the quiet. There was no answer. Across town, Clara sat alone at her small kitchen table. The apartment felt enormous without him. His toothbrush was still beside hers. His sweater still draped over the back of her chair. She hadn't moved anything. She hadn't decided whether that meant strength or denial. A small envelope lay in front of her. She had found it tucked inside one of his books 2 nights ago. An old novel he used to read aloud to her in fragments. Her name was written on the front in his careful handwriting. Clara had not opened it yet. She stared at it now, fingers hovering over the paper as if it might burn her. If she opened it, the finality would become real. If she didn't, she could pretend he was only late. Her phone buzzed suddenly on the table, startling her. She glanced at the screen. Anna. For a moment, Clara simply stared at the name. The two of them had exchanged numbers at the cemetery without speaking about it. It had felt necessary. Unavoidable. Her hands trembled as she answered. "Hello." There was a brief pause. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," Anna said, her voice composed but tired. "No," Clara replied quickly. "It's fine." Another small silence. "I've been thinking," Anna began, then hesitated. "About what you told me." Clara's hand instinctively moved to her abdomen again. "Yes. You'll need support." The words were practical, almost formal. but beneath them lay something deeper, an acknowledgement. "I have some savings," Clara said softly. "And I work remotely. I'll manage." "That's not what I meant." The Clara's breath caught. Anna inhaled slowly on the other end of the line. "This child is my son's sibling." The statement hung heavy between them. Clara closed her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "I don't know what this looks like," Anna continued. "I don't know what we're supposed to be to each other. But I won't pretend this child doesn't exist." Tears slid down Clara's face silently. "You don't have to do that," she said. "You don't owe me." "It's not about you," Anna interrupted gently. "It's about him. And about the baby." The baby. The word sounded fragile and enormous all at once. "I spent 6 years angry at you," Anna admitted quietly. "I don't want to spend the next 18 ignoring something innocent." Clara pressed her lips together, overwhelmed. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. Anna's voice softened. "I don't think forgiveness is the right word." "What is?" "I think we're both victims of the same man's inability to be brave." The truth of it landed without cruelty. Clara let out a shaky breath. "He wasn't cruel." "No," Anna agreed. "Just afraid." They sat in silence, connected by nothing but breath and shared memory. "I found something," Clara said suddenly, glancing at the unopened envelope. "A letter. He wrote my name on it." Anna absorbed this quietly. "He kept journals," Anna said after a moment. "In his study." "I haven't opened them yet." Clara imagined those journals. Pages filled with thoughts neither of them had fully known. "I'm afraid to read it," she confessed. "I understand." Another pause. "If you ever decide to," Anna said slowly. "And if there's something in it that affects the future, I would want to know." Clara nodded, though Anna could not see her. "I will tell you." The conversation felt surreal. Two women, negotiating the aftermath of a love triangle that had ended not with resolution, but with burial. "Daniel knows about the baby," Anna added quietly. Clara's heart lurched. "How did he?" "I told him." "And?" Anna exhaled. "He was quiet. Then he asked if he could meet you." The Clara's hand flew to her mouth. "Not now," Anna clarified gently. "But someday." But Clara struggled to steady her voice. "If he wants to, he does." Tears blurred Clara's vision. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Neither do I," Anna said honestly. "We'll figure it out." The simplicity of those words held an unexpected comfort. After they ended the call, Clara sat for a long time in silence. Then, slowly, she reached for the envelope. Her fingers slid beneath the flap. The paper inside trembled as she unfolded it. She recognized his handwriting immediately. Slanted, deliberate, familiar. "Clara, if you're reading this, it means I've finally found the courage to put something into words. I should have spoken long ago." Her breath hitched. I have spent years telling myself I was protecting both of you by waiting. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for certainty. Waiting for a version of myself that knew how to hurt less. But I see now that waiting has been its own form of cruelty. A tear dropped onto the page. I love you. That has never been confusion. What I feel for you is real and whole and terrifying in its depth. Clara's chest tightened painfully. But I also love the life I built before I met you. I love my son. I love the woman who stood beside me long before I deserved her loyalty. The words blurred. I have been a coward. She let out a broken sob. Not because the confession was shocking, but because it was true. If I lose either of you, it will be because I was too afraid to accept that love sometimes demands destruction before it allows rebirth. Clara pressed the letter to her chest. He had known. He had understood the damage, and still he had waited. Outside her window, the evening light faded slowly into dusk. In another house across town, Anna stood in Thomas's study, staring at the closed drawer that held his journals. Neither woman opened the rest of his words that night. Both of them understood something quietly and completely. He had loved them. And in loving both, he had broken them. Spring arrived slowly that year, hesitant and pale. The trees outside, Anna's house budded with fragile green, as though unsure they were allowed to begin again. The air softened. The days stretched longer. Grief, however, did not obey the seasons. It simply changed shape. Clara's pregnancy began to show by late April. A gentle curve beneath her dresses. A quiet, undeniable presence. She moved more carefully now, one hand often resting on her stomach, as if steadying both herself and the life within her. She and Anna spoke once a week. At first the conversations were stiff, practical. Doctor appointments, paperwork, questions about medical history. But gradually, something else emerged. Shared stories. Small, unexpected memories. He used to burn toast every Sunday. Anna said once over the phone, a faint smile in her voice. No matter how many times I showed him. Clara laughed softly. He burned pasta with me. Who burns pasta? He did. They sat with the image of him, flawed and endearing, bridging the silence between them. Daniel met Clara for the first time in early May. They chose a quiet park, neutral ground. Anna sat on a nearby bench, pretending to read while her son approached the woman who had lived in the shadows of their lives. Clara stood when she saw him. Up close, the resemblance struck her with painful force. The same eyes, the same thoughtful stillness. He, Daniel said, awkward but steady. Hi. They stood there for a moment, measuring each other, not as rivals, not as enemies, but as people tied together by blood and absence. I don't blame you, Daniel said quietly, surprising them both. Clara's throat tightened. You don't have to say that. I know. He shrugged slightly. But I don't. He glanced at her stomach, then back at her face. Is it a boy or a girl? We don't know yet. He nodded. I think Dad would have wanted to know. Clara smiled faintly. He would have pretended he didn't care. But he would have. Daniel's lips curved almost imperceptibly. I wish he'd just told the truth, he said after a moment. About everything? Clara swallowed. Me too. The honesty hung between them like something sacred. From the bench, Anna watched the two of them. Her son, and the woman she had once imagined only in anger. Now they stood beneath the open sky, connected by something neither of them had chosen. Loss had rearranged them all. In June, Clara went into labor during a thunderstorm. The sky cracked open with violent light, rain lashing against the hospital windows. Anna was the second person she called. The first had been an instinct that no longer existed. Anna arrived at the hospital with Daniel close behind. The corridors smelled of antiseptic and electricity. Clara's face was pale with pain, her hair damp against her forehead. She gripped the hospital sheets with fierce determination. For a brief moment, Anna hesitated at the doorway. Then she stepped inside. Clara looked up, startled, relief flooding her expression. You came? Wes. There was no more to say. Hours stretched and folded into each other. Clara screamed. She cried. She cursed Thomas once through clenched teeth, then apologized tearfully to no one in particular. Anna stayed. She held Clara's hand when contractions tore through her. She wiped her forehead with a cool cloth. She murmured steady words that surprised her with their gentleness. You're doing fine. Breathe. It's almost over. It felt surreal, guiding into the world a child who was not hers, and yet bound irrevocably to her life. When the baby finally cried, sharp and indignant, something inside the room shifted. Time paused. The nurse placed a small, trembling bundle against Clara's chest. A girl, she said softly. Clara stared down at her daughter, tears flowing freely. The baby's fists were clenched, her face scrunched in outrage at existence. A thin, fierce cry filled the space. Anna stepped closer before she could stop herself. The baby's eyes fluttered open briefly. Brown. Deep brown. Clara looked up at Anna. Overwhelmed. She has his eyes. Anna felt her own vision blur. Yes, she whispered. Daniel entered quietly, standing near the foot of the bed. He stared at the tiny, fragile life that had arrived through so much complication. She's loud, he observed softly. Clara laughed through tears. She is. What's her name? Anna asked. Clara hesitated only a moment. Hope. The word settled gently into the room. Anna inhaled sharply. Hope, Daniel repeated, testing it. Clara nodded. Because even when he failed to choose, he loved us both. And somehow, something beautiful still came from it. Anna looked at the baby again. At the impossible mixture of past and future wrapped in a hospital blanket. She reached out slowly. May I? Clara nodded. Anna took Hope carefully into her arms. The weight of her was astonishingly small, and yet immense. Hope quieted almost immediately, her tiny fingers curling instinctively against Anna's chest. For a moment, the years of betrayal and waiting and divided love seemed to dissolve into something simpler. Grief did not vanish, but it transformed. Daniel stepped closer, peering down at his half-sister. "She's going to ask questions someday," he said quietly. "Yes," Clara replied. "And we'll tell her the truth," Anna said. "No more waiting. No more half-lives." Outside, the storm began to ease. Sunlight broke faintly through the clouds, casting a pale glow across the hospital room. Anna looked at Clara. Clara looked at Anna. Neither smiled widely. Neither pretended the past had not wounded them. But something new existed now. Something neither rivalry nor resentment could undo. They had both loved the same man. They had both been broken by his fear. And now, together, they would love what he had left behind. Anna leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to Hope's forehead. "Your father was many things," she murmured softly. "But he loved deeply." Clara closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "He did." And in the quiet aftermath of thunder, with a newborn child breathing steadily between them, two women who had once stood on opposite sides of a grave began, slowly, to stand on the same side of life.